Silenced. The conspiracy surrounding the capture and death of Dezi Freeman. A photographic documentary. Dead men tell no tales, but the questions they leave behind speak volumes. The official story begins on the morning of August 26, 2025. 10 Victoria police officers arrived at Four Gully Farm, a remote compound near Porapunka in Victoria's Alpine region, to execute a warrant against 56-year-old Desmond Dezi Freeman. The compound consisted of a converted bus, shipping containers, and a pole marquee, nestled deep in the Australian bush. What happened next would ignite one of the most controversial manhunts in Australian history and leave a trail of unanswered questions that persist to this day. The warrant was officially described as a firearms prohibition order related to alleged sexual offenses. Charges that Freeman's supporters would later claim were fabricated to silence him. 2 officers were killed. The incident that changed everything. Detective leading Senior Constable Neil Thompson, aged 59 and just 1 week from retirement, and Senior Constable Vadim de Warthoddert, aged 35, were fatally shot. A 3rd officer was wounded. Freeman escaped into the dense bushland of Mount Buffalo National Park, taking the fallen officer's handguns with him. 27 minutes of footage, captured by a Freeman family member during the raid, has never been fully released to the public. And here's the critical question that no one in authority wants to answer. Why was the Special Operations Group deemed unnecessary for a warrant against a known anti-authority figure whose firearms license had already been canceled? So who was Dezi Freeman? The man they wanted silenced. Born Desmond Christopher Philby in 1969, Freeman was a freelance photographer, an experienced bushman, and a self-proclaimed sovereign citizen who had been vocal about government corruption for years. He changed his name to Freeman, a surname popular in the sovereign citizen movement, and became increasingly outspoken against what he saw as state tyranny. His views intensified during the COVID-19 pandemic, when he protested lockdowns, refused masks, and rejected the legitimacy of all state power. But it was one pivotal act that his supporters believe sealed his fate. In 2021, Freeman attempted to privately prosecute former Victorian Premier Daniel Andrews for treason and fraud. The case was struck out at the first hearing, but his supporters believe this marked him as a target. The treason case. What was Freeman trying to expose? His 2021 attempt to prosecute Daniel Andrews for treason was not an isolated act of defiance. It was part of a broader campaign by sovereign citizens who believed the Victorian government had committed criminal acts during the COVID-19 lockdowns, the harshest in the Western world. Freeman and his associates compiled documents alleging government overreach, unconstitutional emergency powers, and systematic corruption. While the legal establishment dismissed these efforts, Freeman's supporters argue that his persistence in holding power to account made him a marked man. And here's the conspiracy angle that refuses to go away. Was the sexual offense warrant, served years after the alleged incident, simply a convenient pretext to raid his property, seize his evidence, and neutralize a vocal critic of the state? What followed was Australia's largest manhunt, an unprecedented response. The search for Freeman became the largest police tactical operation in Australian history. Nearly 500 officers were deployed, supported by interstate police forces, the Australian Security Intelligence Organisation, the Australian Defence Force, helicopters, drones, specialist dogs, and cadaver units. Over 100 properties were searched. A no-fly zone was established. Mount Buffalo National Park was closed entirely. A record $1 million reward was offered, the largest in Victorian history. The question that haunts this entire case: why did the state deploy military-grade resources to find one man hiding in the bush? Was this a manhunt, or was it a silencing operation? The Sovereign Citizen Network, who helped him survive. For 216 days, Freeman evaded the most intensive search operation in Australian history. Police openly stated they believed community members were assisting him. The Sovereign Citizen Network, a decentralized movement of anti-authority adherents communicating through Telegram groups and encrypted channels, is believed to have provided shelter, supplies, and intelligence. 2 associates were later arrested for allegedly helping him evade capture. The movement's online forums buzzed with support, treating Freeman as a folk hero standing against a corrupt system. Consider this detail. Police fired dozens of shots into bushland in November 2025 to replicate and analyze gunfire echoes, a tactic that strongly suggests they had absolutely no idea where Freeman actually was. The "he's dead" deception. February 2026. In February 2026, Victoria Police made a startling announcement. They strongly believed Freeman was dead. Cadaver dogs were deployed. Over 100 officers and volunteers conducted a 5-day search of Mount Buffalo National Park for his remains. They found nothing. Commissioner Mike Bush later admitted there was, quote, "a lot to suggest Freeman had taken his own life. But was this a genuine assessment? Or was it a calculated psychological operation designed to lure Freeman out of hiding by making him believe the heat was off?" Because the deception was soon revealed. Just weeks after declaring him dead, police received a tip-off about his exact location. The dead man was very much alive, hiding 150 kilometers from where they had been searching. The final hideout, Thalagolong. Freeman was found at a rural property in Thalagolong, near Walwa, in northeast Victoria, approximately 150 kilometers northeast of Porapunka. He had been hiding in a converted shipping container on a remote property. Police had been tipped off days earlier and began their operation at approximately 5:30 in the morning on March 30th, 2026. The question of who betrayed Freeman's location remains deeply contentious. Online conspiracy communities circulated claims that money was stronger than friendship, suggesting the $1 million reward motivated someone in his inner circle to turn informant. And here's what remains unanswered. How did Freeman travel 150 kilometers undetected during the most intensive manhunt in Australian history? The 3-hour standoff. His last stand. What followed was a 3-hour standoff between Freeman and heavily armed tactical police. Specialist negotiators spent the morning attempting to coax him out of the shipping container. During this time, Freeman reportedly made what has been described as a last-stand confession, identifying himself and admitting to the murders of the 2 officers. But what else did he say during those 3 hours? What claims did he make about why he was targeted? The full transcript of the negotiation has never been released. Then came the critical moment. Freeman emerged wrapped in a doona, a blanket. He dropped it to reveal a police pistol, the one taken from Neil Thompson's body, and fired at a negotiator. He was shot over 20 times. Shot over 20 times. Justice or execution? Freeman was struck by more than 20 bullets. No officers were injured. Commissioner Bush declared the shooting justified and said Freeman was given every opportunity to surrender peacefully. But critics and conspiracy theorists point to the overwhelming force used against a single individual. Was this proportional self-defense? Or was it a calculated execution, designed to ensure Freeman could never stand trial, never testify, and never publicly air whatever he claimed to know about government corruption? Victoria Police's Professional Standards Command is now investigating the shooting. The coroner will hold a mandatory inquest. But will these inquiries reveal the full truth? Or will they merely rubber stamp the official narrative? The missing evidence. Body cameras and sealed files. In the aftermath of Freeman's death, public demands for transparency have intensified. Questions about body camera footage from the final standoff remain unanswered. The 27-minute video filmed by a Freeman family member during the initial Porapunka shooting has never been fully released. Evidence discovered by a 7 News crew, hidden in a hollow tree near the hideout, has been seized by police. Freeman's social media accounts, which contained years of anti-government content and allegations, have been taken offline. Notice the pattern here. Every single piece of evidence that could shed light on Freeman's claims is now in the hands of the very institutions he accused of corruption. The conspiracy grows. Voices that won't be silenced. In the days following Freeman's death, the the sovereign citizen community and broader conspiracy networks erupted. Social media posts declared, "This was a revenge killing by Vic Pole." Others claimed Freeman was holding Daniel Andrews and the justice system accountable for their corruption and was eliminated before he could present his evidence in court. A protester in Adelaide had earlier been arrested for displaying a placard depicting Freeman at a rally. His supporters compare him to Ned Kelly, the outlaw folk hero who stood against a corrupt colonial establishment. The movement's central claim is this: Freeman was not a criminal. He was a whistleblower who was systematically discredited, hunted, and ultimately silenced by the state. The unanswered questions. The questions surrounding Freeman's case form a disturbing pattern that demands scrutiny. 1. Why was the warrant served by general officers rather than the Special Operations Group, despite Freeman's known hostility and canceled firearms license? 2. Why were sexual offense charges, allegedly years old, suddenly pursued against a man who had been publicly challenging the government? 3. How did Freeman survive 216 days in the bush during the largest manhunt in Australian history? 4. Why did police declare him dead in February, only to find him alive weeks later? 5. What did Freeman say during the 3-hour standoff that has not been released? 6. Why was he shot over 20 times rather than incapacitated? And 7. Where is the body camera footage? The official narrative versus the conspiracy. The official narrative presents Freeman as a dangerous sovereign citizen extremist who murdered 2 police officers and was killed while resisting arrest after a 7-month manhunt. The conspiracy narrative presents a radically different picture. A man who dared to challenge government corruption was targeted with fabricated charges and was ultimately executed to prevent him from speaking publicly. The truth likely lies somewhere in the shadows between these two accounts. But until the coroner's inquest delivers its findings, and until the sealed evidence is made public, the conspiracy will only grow. And here is the fundamental question at the heart of this case. In a democracy, when a vocal critic of the government is killed by the state before they can stand trial, who gets to write the final chapter? The truth remains buried. The death of Dezi Freeman ended Australia's largest manhunt. But it may have only begun the search for the truth. The coroner's inquest is pending. The professional standards investigation continues. 2 associates have been arrested. The sovereign citizen movement grows. And the questions about what Freeman knew, what he was trying to say, and why he had to die remain unanswered. This documentary presents conspiracy theories and alternative narratives surrounding the Dezi Freeman case. The claims made by conspiracy theorists have not been independently verified. This work is intended to document and examine these theories, not to endorse them. Silenced. A photographic documentary. 2026.